Many people who have bipolar disorder feel isolated because they struggle to accept their diagnosis. This while their loved ones also need to learn how to provide them with support. Samantha Smirin has been living with the condition for decades and is now a life coach. She's written a book called Life Interrupted, documenting her own experience, and she hopes to help others. She's joining us now this lunchtime via Zoom. It is, of course, World Bipolar Day here on ENSA, doing our little bit to focus on this condition. Samantha, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us here on lunchtime. If you don't mind me asking, when did you find out first that you had this condition?
I was diagnosed in 1989, so that's 32 years ago.
And the early years must have been very tough for you, either maybe to accept yourself that you had the condition and getting the appropriate kind of support from the family.
Absolutely. I mean, I lived in denial, which is a common experience with people living with bipolar for many, many years, for decades, in fact. And that interfered with my treatment, with my medical treatment, and there was a non-compliance with medication that accompanied that. So it certainly was and has been a very difficult journey in that regard.
And Samantha, thank you very much for being willing to share the story with us. How soon did you then get to grips? How long did it take you to say, okay, I have to manage this properly, I have to accept this is a condition I have, and I must take the medication?
You know, it's been a kind of up and down interaction with the illness. At times I've accepted it, but at other times I've rejected it because it seemed to me to be like a blight on my mind, that I had an unreliable mind, and I fought that within myself. But ultimately I came to accept the diagnosis, and it's become very useful to me. It's been like a guiding light. So taking my meds is easy. It helps me maintain a balanced and stable mood. But it has been a journey, a continuous journey. Yeah,
and of course, I mean, in many societies, including our own here in South Africa, there's a stigma associated with mental health challenges, and bipolar being one of them. And how have you managed that? I mean, did you find that you had to handle people and teach people and educate people about when they sort of treated you differently than they should?
I mean, it was very hurtful, and some of my friends were sort of dismissive of it and kind of made fun of it towards me. But on the whole, my experience has been very positive. People have been very compassionate and understanding. I've had huge support from family and friends. So I myself was not a target of stigma and discrimination, but I do find that is pervasive. And in a support group that I run, I find that that's often a topic that we do speak about.
And what's your advice to people who are faced with stigma?
Well, I would suggest you join a support group with like-minded people that go through, sharing experiences is always useful for people. And then to just enter into a relationship with yourself. Often we suffer from self-stigmatization, which isn't often spoken about, and we blame ourselves for having bipolar, and there's a sort of sense of self-hatred. So I think to make peace with oneself, to accept it wasn't something that you asked for, and not to stigmatize yourself, and work with communication with people, just so that people understand that you're going through a human dilemma, so that they can offer support. Because on the whole, people do wish to support other people. Well, that's been my experience.
And then you wrote Life Interrupted. I haven't read it in my introduction to you this afternoon. In that book, do you talk about your journey, and do you share some insights about how people can manage the condition?
Well, Life Interrupted, a bipolar memoir, that's the full title, is exactly that. It's my story since 1989 to date. And I speak very candidly and very truthfully. It was not an easy read, and it's kind of like an open book, so to speak, on my private life. It really has followed my experience with the illness, and I wrote it in the hope that people out there would find some solace in sharing someone else's journey and gain strength through my experience, through my own personal triumph with the illness.
Yeah, so it's a balance of then taking the medication understanding yourself, what the condition is, accepting it, and seeking the right kind of support. Are we giving that kind of support in this country?
I think no. You know, we have so many agendas in this country, but I think mental health illness is highly stigmatized, and as a result, we don't give each other the support. But support must come from the beginning. You know, the sort of the kernel of support is the family, then the friends, then the wider society, then the opinions that are out there, you know, then ultimately globally. And mental health illness is becoming more spoken about. So I think there is a move towards it. If we remember and recall our HIV and AIDS, you know, the situation, often that was highly stigmatized, and now it's somewhat more in the open, it's somewhat more accepted. So I do feel there is a move along the lines for mental health illness to become destigmatized.
Okay, finally and very briefly, Samantha, the theme for World Bipolar Day 2021 is strength for today, hope for tomorrow. If there was one message you'd like to leave our viewers who are watching this conversation with you on this day, what would it be?
Well, certainly strength. We all need to have strength, and as South Africans, we have strength. And in terms of hope, let's always hold on to that. With hope, there's always the possibility of change. So as much as you might be struggling with the illness, as much as you might be struggling with a loved one or a family member suffering from the illness, harness that hope. Hope for the future to be positive, because it certainly is possible, and I'm living testament to that.